Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today we're going to be talking about some of the most recent news for the Houston Rockets. As today, it was reported that the Houston Rockets emerged to be the number one team to land free agent Kyle Kuzma in free agency. This one kind of shocked me because, Kyle Kuzma has a hot market. Teams like the Kings and Pacers, well, I don't know if the Kings are going to really be pursuing Kyle Kuzma anymore because the Kings just gave Harrison Barnes a 3-year, $54 million extension, so who was going to be a free agent, so I don't really know if the Kings will still be in the market but Kuzma, but there are plenty of teams that were interested in Kyle Kuzma, and I think plenty of teams that will be maybe willing to pay, maybe not him the number he wants. He wants $30 million a year, maybe close to that, around $20 to $25 million a year. That's something I really don't think the Rockets should do. And in that case, I'd rather the Rockets sign Dillon Brooks. I know it sounds crazy, but Dillon Brooks, you can pay him $14 a year instead of paying Kuzma in the area of $20 to $25 a year. And I know Dillon Brooks is not as good as offensively as Kyle Kuzma is, but look at this Rockets team and look how good they're going to be defensively next year. You had Dillon Brooks into that defense. The Rockets defense with Amen Thompson, Dillon Brooks, Jabari's shot blocking. KPJ's a really solid defender as well. So are guys like Tari Eason, Jayshawn Tate. Who am I missing? Cam Whitmore's a solid defender. Got a full, I honestly, the whole roster as of right now is basically everybody's good defenders besides Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. And I feel like that's something Alperen Sengun is probably working on, is his, defense, his shot blocking, his defense in the paint. So I would think Sengun's probably working on his defense, and probably the same thing for Jalen Green as well. So this, the defense, it was improving last year. Now you draft Cam Whitmore, solid defender. You draft Amen Thompson, an amazing defender, one of the best, if not the best, one of the best defenders in this draft class. So the Rockets' defense is going to be amazing, way better than it was last year. And then you have Ime Udoka, Ime Udoka is a defensive-minded head coach running that defense. The Rockets' defense is going to be scary next year. Then you add in Dillon Brooks, an All-NBA defensive player. Also, he's not that solid. He's not that bad of an offensive player. He didn't do as good as Kuzma. Kuzma averaged 21 points per game this season, but Dillon Brooks nearly averaged 15 points per game this season, and shot kind of close to 3-point percentage as Kuzma did. Kuzma shot 36, and Dillon Brooks shot near 35%. So I don't like how Dillon Brooks played in the playoffs. I don't like the behavior he had in the playoffs. But this guy, and you can talk all your crap about him. Oh, he's going to China. He's doing this. He's doing that. I mean, people love to talk crap about Dillon Brooks because, I'll be honest, he's kind of an asshole. But he's a hell of a defensive player. Even though he was terrible in the playoffs, he's still a solid offensive player who, it can be inefficient sometimes, but when he's playing his best basketball, he's a good offensive player. And with the way our defense is looking next season, I just feel like Dillon Brooks is a good option for the Rockets. And not only that, but he's a cheaper option. Because I just feel as of right now, I love Kyle Kuzma. I just think Kyle Kuzma is just asking for too much in free agency. I mean, Kuzma had a great season this year. He averaged 21 and 6. I just don't. $30 million seems a little too much for Kyle Kuzma. I don't think the Rockets would give him that amount. I think the Rockets would be, if in the 20, I don't even know if the Rockets would want to pay him 20 to 25. I know the Rockets are willing to overpay for Fred VanVleet. They're willing to offer Fred VanVleet a 2-year. They're willing to offer Fred a 2-year, $80 million deal. And it's $40 million a year for VanVleet is definitely an overpay. But for Kyle Kuzma, I don't think he needs to overpay, and $30 million a year is a definitely overpay for Kyle Kuzma. In my opinion, I mean, I maybe 20 to 25. I think that's more realistic for Kuzma. But if the Rockets want to go after Kuzma and potentially sign Kyle Kuzma and Fred VanVleet, I wouldn't mind it. But, I mean, Brooks is a better defender than Kyle Kuzma is. He's way cheaper. You're looking at him maybe, you're looking at Kuzma maybe being twice as much as Dillon Brooks is in free agency. So Dillon Brooks is not as good as Kuzma is, but he's a way cheaper option and he's a way better defender. So honestly, for the Rockets, I know you have the money to spend, but if you stick with Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet, let's say you pay Fred VanVleet the $40 million a year, and you pay Dillon Brooks pay him $14 a year, sign Brooks to a 3-year $42 million deal, sign VanVleet to a 2-year $80 million deal, then you still have a good you'd have a good, I think you're paying VanVleet 40, you're paying that's spending $54 million, so you would still have a good $8 to $12 million to spend, because the Rockets could spend anywhere to $62 to $66 million in free agency this year. So you could get another player in the area of $8 to $12 million, or multiple players after getting Brooks and VanVleet. So honestly, I feel like the Rockets should probably just stick with going after Dillon Brooks. I would love Kuzma on the Rockets, but I think he's just a little too expensive. He was on a bad Wizards team last year. And joining a team where there's going to be more scoring, because if you're looking at a team that's going to have Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Cam Whitmore, Fred VanVleet, KJ Martin, Tari Eason, KPJ, there's going to be a lot of different scores, and I think Kuzma is, he's going to be good for the Rockets in this if he were to sign here, but he's not gonna, be the one of the, Kuzma was, if not, when Beal would ever miss time, Kuzma was either, the first or second option for the Pacers, for the Wizards last year. And yes, him, Porzingis, and Beal were the three best players, but felt like for most of the time, Porzingis and Beal were not available to play for the Wizards due to injuries or something. So I feel like, Kuzma, you also played on a really bad team this year. I know the Rockets not going to be good, themselves, but the Rockets have improved. They've added Ime Udoka as their head coach, Amen Thompson. You'd be adding in Fred VanVleet. You added in Cam Whitmore. So the Rockets are going to be way better next season. So I really don't know if Kuzma would be a great fit for the Rockets. If I'm the Rockets, I honestly stay away. And I know Rockets fans don't want us to sign Dillon Brooks, but to be honest with you guys, as someone who's not a huge fan of Dillon Brooks, and I wouldn't say this if for a while I didn't want us to pick him up, but it pains for me to say this, that Dillon Brooks is actually a good fit for the Houston Rockets. So the Rockets most likely should go after Dillon Brooks in free agency, and I think Kuzma is just way too expensive. I mean, he's 2 times worth, or he's asking 2 times as much as Dillon Brooks is, and Dillon Brooks is a way better defender. The only thing Kuzma has against Dillon Brooks is he's a better 3-point shooter, and he's a better scorer, way better scorer. So honestly, for the cheaper option and for the better defender, I think the Rockets should probably stick with trying to go after Dillon Brooks instead of Kyle Kuzma. I know I'll probably get hate for saying the Rockets signed Dillon Brooks, but it's the truth, as much as it pains me to say it. Dillon Brooks is a good fit for Houston. You guys have your thoughts for the video with Kyle Kuzma and Dillon Brooks. That's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace out. Go Rockets.